Hi, those of you who are sick at home, I hope you can hear this. I don't have my earbuds and my microphone. We're working through the paper I gave you on the choice for reasons in proofs. I thought, so you can check, we're going to go back to those reasons that we talked about in class, and we're going to kind of look through the proof process in this quick video. I had all the notes, so I'm going to pass them out in class. I will post the PDF though. So this worksheet talks about the proof process and what we should do as we write a proof. We should always write down the conjecture to be proven. That's usually going to be written down for you, but if it's projected on the board or something, write down what it is you're trying to prove. Draw a diagram if one isn't provided. Generally, you'll have one, but sometimes there won't be one, and you do want to put it down or draw it out so that you can mark it up. State the given information, so that would be your given line in the proof, and mark it on the diagram is a huge one so that you can kind of visually see what's happening. At the end, you're going to state the conclusion, but in the meantime, you're going to plan your argument to prove your conjecture, and remember that conjecture is just a guess. So let's look at this proof that they've done out for us, okay? It says, mark the diagram, answer the questions about the following proof, and I'm going to show you the questions first. It says, what was the given information? What should be marked in the diagram? What was the conjecture to be proved? What title should be put above the two columns? What properties of equality or property of equality was used to prove the angles congruent? So here's what we're given. In this diagram, we are told that FD bisects angle EFC and that ray FC bisects angle DFB. We're trying to prove that angle EFD is congruent to angle CFB. So I'm going to mark this up with what we know so far. And you can use multiple colors here or just kind of different geometry markings. I'm going to try to do that for you because I'm assuming you're using a pencil or a pen. So we're given that FD, so that's ray FD, that's this ray, bisects angle EFC. So that the fact that it bisects means that this angle and this angle are congruent to each other. We also know that FC, so that's this ray, bisects angle DFB, which tells me that this angle is congruent to this angle. So again, I use one without a hash mark and one with a hash mark to indicate that those angles are congruent to each other. So we're practicing our notation here. All right, so let's go back to our questions. What was the given information? The given information was that those two rays bisect those two angles. What should be marked in the diagram? That's what we just did, right? We put in the rays, we put in the congruent angles. The conjecture that we're trying to prove, and I'm going to go back to the diagram for this, and just kind of with a highlighter, what we're trying to prove is that angle EFD, that's here, is congruent to angle CFB, and that's here. So I want to try to get those two angles to be the same. The next question asks what should be put at the top of our two columns, and we've talked about that in class. That should be our statement. I don't know why I'm using yellow. And reason. And then the last question is going to ask how we proved it, but we'll get to that point. So let's read through and see what's been put into our two-column proof. They've given us that, or they've put down the given, and they wrote given. So put all of the information that you're given. Some proofs will do that all in one line. Some proofs will do different lines and give a bunch of different givens. It doesn't matter to me which you do. All right, we have angle EFD congruent to angle DFC. And I'm going to go back to the diagram again. That's EFD congruent to DFC. And I know that because of the definition of angle bisector. So that's this line in the proof. The next line is where things get a little weird. The next line they're going to say, instead of, it's almost identical to line 2, but they're going to write measure of angle EFD is equal to the measure of angle DFC. So this is where geometry people can get really, really, really particular. The difference between a congruence and an equality. When we're talking equality, we're talking numbers. So we say the measures of the angles are equal, but the angles themselves are congruent. Some people are really particular about that. I'm not sure if I will be or not. I'm going to keep mentioning it as we go through the year. We can't talk about triangles being equal to each other. We do want to get used to that idea of congruence. So measures are for equality, numbers are for equality, congruence is for pieces. So now the next line I'm going to scan through. It says EFD is equal to CFB. That's kind of where we wanted to go, almost there. But let me see where we got there. They used the transitive property. Transitive property, if one thing's equal to one thing and that second thing's equal to another thing, then those two things should be equal. If we go back up to line 3, we had EFD congruent to DFC. And also DFC, that same angle, is congruent to CFB, which tells us by the transitive property that EFD and CFB must be equal to each other. And then one last jump down here, they've gone to what we're trying to prove, which is that the angles are congruent. We weren't trying to prove that the measures of the angles were equal. We're trying to prove the angles were congruent. So we do one last line here and state that they're congruent. And the reason they're congruent is because we've shown their measures are congruent, and then we say definition of congruent angles. So there's a lot going on just in that one proof. We're going to try as many proofs as we can in class today. I'm going to try to type up an outline or write up an outline for you, an answer key for some of those proofs, and we'll do what we can today. I know this is hard, being homesick, extra paid, and not being able to talk through these. But we're going to try to answer as many of 16 through so we understand kind of the process that's going on. So in each one of these, they haven't written it out, but the statement is over here, and you are going to fill in the reason using those reasons that we have in that that paper that I gave you. All right, hope you feel better, guys, and we will see you when you get back. And we're going to work on these proofs all year. This is just our first introduction. So if you're not getting it right away all by yourself, don't worry about it too much. All right, take care, bye-bye. Just attached to it, 20 as we can. And today is really just filling in reasons and making